All right, students, welcome back to our second module. In our first module, we got Fast API to work on our machine. We'll do it again real quick. I'll do it again real quick. And in our second module, what we want to do is we want to connect our terminal to Okteto so that we can develop in Okteto and we can actually run our code in Okteto so that it's actually in a URL that anybody can view. All right, we'll get it to run. So in this module, we're going to get it to run in Okteto all the way up to the point where we finally deploy. So what happens is our website will run as long as we're running in our local machine, but it's running it. We'll do the commands from our local machine, but it'll run in Okteto, but it won't be officially deployed. In module 3, we'll officially deploy it, and then we'll start playing around with some of the code a little more. At least the code involving the requests, the posts, and the gets, and then we can get and also connecting to our database, et cetera, et cetera. But right now, for this module, we just want to connect to Okteto now. All right. So if you remember, first things first, let me connect my folder. All right. This is my folder that I set up with my programs. Now I have additional program and files here that you guys don't have. We'll get to that. You guys will create that today. First things first, I'm going to go to under packages, click on Platformio, click on new terminal. And as you remember, I have a new terminal right here. Now, before I want to run the code on my local machine, on Okteto, let's run it on my local machine. If you guys remember how we do this. All right, first we want to enter our virtual environment. Remember, in Mac, it's basically source web dash /bin /activate. Right? Oh, I had the wrong slashes. There we go. And as you can see over here, the prompt changed to show that I'm in my virtual environment. Right? Everything else pretty much looks the same, but I'm now in my virtual environment. Now, if you guys remember from you PCers, right? Your command was slightly different in the sense that you guys had to use. First of all, you guys didn't have a source command. You guys used something a little bit different. I have it right here. Right, my Windows, if you remember, hopefully you guys still remember. I sent it out for you. All right, my PCs, what you would do is you would write the command of your whatever your environment. Let's say your name was web dash. I think you guys were doing web dash /scripts /activate. So that was slightly different from the way we did it, right? So, but it's not that much different. All right. So either way, you're in your virtual environment. And remember, our main code to run the server is main, and this runs the server, and the server runs the application, which is in our apps right here, the app.py. Just this simple code. Okay, and I go ahead and to run this, I simply have to just do Python main.py. That kicks off the server. And remember, this starts happening. And on our local machine, this is how it's going to look. Go to my local machine right here. Type that in. And boom, here we go. On my local machine. All right. Now, we want to get this done, not on our local machine. We want to get it done on our URL on Okteto. All right, so that's what we want to do. So let me do Control C here, or Command, let's see, Control C, and I'm out of this. And now we can start with today's lesson. Now, look, the first thing we need to do is, got some work to do. We got to first download what we call the Okteto CLI, command line interface. And this allows us to run Okteto commands from our computer. All right. Now, again, just like before, it's slightly different for Macs and for PCs. For Macs, again, it's simple. You just want to copy this command, guys, and put it right in your prompt, right there, right? And go ahead and execute it, and you'll have Okteto, and it'll do everything you need to do over here. If you run this over here, after you run this, you guys will see something like this happen, right? Which basically shows that Okteto was successfully installed, right? Okay. For my PCs, it's a little more involved, isn't it always? So what you guys want to do is you guys want to basically, I have the command right here. It's a little more involved. For Windows, what you need to do is you need to go to this URL. All right, guys, you need to go to this URL. And when you go to this URL, you're going to download this executable file. Remember where you download this executable file because then you have to add it to path. Now, to add it to your path, you have to go, and again, I can't show you this in real time because again, I'm on a Mac, but you basically have to go to your start menu, and then search in start menu for advanced system settings, right? Like over this. So you want to see basically something like this over here. And then click on the link pretty much for advanced system. So you can also go through control panel to system and security system. Sorry, I have some sort of typo here. And your advanced system hyperlinks in the left-hand pane. So basically, this is what you want, view advanced system settings, all right? Once it opens, down below, you want to click on environmental variables, my PCs. This is what you want, the environmental variables, all right? You click on that, and then you're going to see something like this, your system variables. Look for within the system variables, the keyword path. That's what the one you want, path. And then you're going to click on edit, all right? Click on edit. Hopefully you're all in Windows 10 because in Windows 10, they actually made this much easier and smoother than the other versions. So once you've clicked on the edit button, right, this dialog box will pop up. And what you want to do basically is you want to add a new, you want to click on new, and you want to add a new location, right, a new location. And this is where you add your location to wherever your Okteto.exe file, when you guys download it, wherever it ended up being. And you're going to have that path, click new and add that path. And then you're going to click on OK. And then this new path will be part of your path environments. And for my PCs now, just like Macs, you'll be able to execute the Okteto commands anywhere from your machines. All right? Now we're ready to rock. Now to test that, go back to your prompt. After you did that, my Macs and my PCs, go to your prompt over here and just type in the word Okteto. Right, when you do this, you should see a bunch of commands come up. I mean, basically what it does is it shows you all the commands that are available for you guys to use. Right here. All these commands for you that we can execute from our command prompt to manage our Okteto container online. All right, so if you see this, it's good. At this point, we have to now download Kubernetes credentials. Okay? Now, we need these credentials to basically allow our computer to connect to Okteto in the server, right, in the cloud. What is Kubernetes? All right. Why are you MITA students? You guys should be familiar with this. If you guys are going in the cloud engineering space, right? But for my MBA students, what is Kubernetes? Why do I have to know this? Well, basically, it's a software. Kubernetes it's a software that's used across vastly different servers. And what Kubernetes does, I mean, to understand what Kubernetes is, ideally what it does is, I mean, at its base level, it manages containers on servers. All right, done. Now, the question is, what the hell is a container? The way servers now work is that any kind of server, be a Linux server, a Windows server, a Mac server, doesn't matter. Any one of these servers, they can run a container or multiple containers on that server. Think of like our virtual environments, right? It's something like the same concept as a virtual environment. So these servers now have these different containers that are running. Within each container, you have each application running. Okay, now why do they do this? Where does this come from? This basically came from the concept of that, firms now have all these different servers, and they might have different companies, right? And they have these massive applications that they need to run on these servers that are of different kinds. Like one might be a Linux, some might be PCs, right? And these applications are huge, massive distributed applications, meaning they're running on various different servers. That's how large some of these applications are. Okay, so this concept of containers allows companies to now have your application or parts of your application running on different servers. And it can do that because now everything is based on containers, right? Everything is based in these containers. So the container is somewhat agnostic to what server it's running on. All that matters is you configure the container correctly, right? And you configure it correctly on all the different servers. And now all these different servers that, again, are probably like different techs. One's Windows, one's Mac, one's Linux. But now they're running all basically the same software seamlessly because they're running these containers which are like agnostic to the technology underlying it. All the container cares about is, hey, what application might I configure to run? All right? Kubernetes is the software that manages all these containers, distributed. So it basically, you have all these containers running, right? Like I said before, you have this application that's spread across these different containers on these different servers, right? And again, you could have several different containers on one server. It gets that crazy. Kubernetes is basically the software that connects it all, makes it all seamless. It's the software. It's some sort of freeware. It's open source software. Has apparently gotten very popular. Amazon runs it. Microsoft runs it. So very versatile. So of course, Okteto runs it as well because it is, because of its popularity of it. So for our purposes, right, we need to download our Kubernetes credentials. Okteto sits on top of Kubernetes. So we have to download these credentials for this software so that our computer knows basically how to talk to the software, and our software knows about how to interact with our computer, interacting with our container, which is on Okteto. All right. Now, the way we're going to do this is we have to go to our Okteto account. I have it right here. Open up. I have our Okteto account. Mine has a lot of things going on. And on the left-hand side, when you guys log in, you'll see settings. Click on settings. All right. From here, you see this? This is exactly what you want here, guys. The download config file. You go ahead and you click on this, and it's going to download something. It's going to download some file. It's going to go somewhere. All right. It's going to download something and download some file. Really straightforward. All right, this download config file will be downloaded. I think it'll be in your download folders. It doesn't really matter. Once it's downloaded, you now need to execute back in our terminals these commands depending if you're a Mac or a PC. My Macs, this is what you're going to download. This is what you're going to execute. Oops. Forgot to copy it. All right, this is what you're going to execute. For my PCs, you're going to, okay, clear it. Oops. I didn't mean to do that. For my PCs, hold on, let me source back into it. All right, for my PCs, this is what you're going to download. This behemoth, right? This is where you're going to copy. You're going to place it there. You're going to execute it on your terminals. All right. So everybody has to download the same file. Where are we? Right here. Everybody has to download this file. But Macs, this is what you have to execute. Windows is what you have to execute. All right. Once you do that, to test to make sure everything worked fine, execute this command: kubectl get all. The annoying thing of this prompt. kubectl get all. And when you execute this command, you should get something like this. You shouldn't get an error. So if you get anything like this, or it executes and have these weird things coming up, oh, your website, your name server stuff that I have no idea what this means, right? Then you are good to go. We have downloaded our Kubernetes credentials. We're connected to Okteto. We've got our Kubernetes credentials, all right? And we're getting closer. Now, before we load up our files, we need to create something called a requirements.txt file. And we're going to use the pip command to do this. And basically what this does is it just allows us, remember when we did all our pip installs, right, in our virtual environments? So what requirements.txt is basically all the pip installs we did, all of them. Even ones you don't know you did, right? When you did those installs, it's there. So we use this nifty little command called freeze from pip with the arrow, and this basically allows us to, the freeze command basically all it does is it goes, this is why it's important you're in a virtual environment, it goes into the virtual environment you're currently in, and it basically takes all the libraries you installed and it sends it to requirements.txt, and name it requirements.txt. I'm sorry, when you copy it, it actually gets messed up, so just fix it, make sure it's correct. You paste this line in, or I'm sorry, just type this line in to be safe. You press enter, right? And then what should happen is you should see this requirements.txt file pop up over here. I already have it. Let's click on it and see what happens, right? And then you'll see this happen. And basically these are the libraries that were downloaded you didn't even know, right? And they're different versions, et cetera, and it's all there in requirements.txt for us. So it makes it much easier for us to upload our libraries and actually install those libraries once we're in Okteto. All right? And now we are ready for probably the last step, which is creating a Dockerfile. All right? A lot of things I'm throwing at you, technicalities I'm throwing at you. Dockerfile. Dockerfile is another thing that's now a buzzword. Kubernetes and Dockerfiles is another buzzword. All right? Now remember we talked about before the fact that you have these containers, right? In these containers, applications runs. Well, in order to, one of the technologies out there that helps facilitate this is what we call these Docker files, right? A Docker file is just a text file, guys. It's just a text file, but it has its own lingos, and I hate to call it a language, but it has its own kind of language that you type into that file that basically defines how you're going to generate an image, quote unquote image. What does that mean? Well, that image, right? When we talk about in this world of cloud computing, that image is basically used to construct a container or a bunch of containers, all which have the same configuration, right? All of which have the same configuration. The container that we talked about that runs these applications on these servers, this Docker file basically has the definitions and the instructions that create those containers, that define those containers, right? That basically tells that container, hey, this is how you're going to run. This is the kind of application you're going to run, right? And remember, Kubernetes, Okteto has Kubernetes. Kubernetes pretty much sits on top of Okteto, and Okteto pretty much sits on top of Kubernetes, right? And Kubernetes is managing all these different containers. It's managing all these different containers. Our web application will be just one of these containers, right? So we need a Docker file for Kubernetes to basically tell Kubernetes, hey, we're defining this new container, and this is how this container is going to look, right? All right, now the Docker file, it's kind of strange. It's basically, for our case, it's very simple. It's basically very simple. It's a bunch of these keywords. Notice the from, add, run, expose, copy, etc., etc. It'll look something like this on your machine. This, you just have to go in there and manually type it. So Python 3.95. Do it exactly like this. You guys are going to make some mistakes. Add requirements.txt. Again, this requirements.txt is our part for the libraries we're going to load up. We're going to also add the main.py. Remember, main.py runs our server. We're going to add the Docker file itself. Right? The Docker file itself will go there. We're going to run this command we wanted to run. Expose 880 because we're going to run it on the server 880. And we want to copy our folder, our app folder, right? If you look here, we have our whole app folder. We want to copy the whole folder and everything that's in it. All right, and the command we want to run is python 3, comma, main.py. That's what we want to do on our server. There, done. Create our Dockerfile. When you create it, you have this little Dockerfile right here. Looks like this, and we're good to go. Same thing in our directory. All right, now we're ready to log in and upload. All right, so first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to log in. Now, when I log in, my situation is going to be slightly different than yours. Type in Okteto login. Right? If you'll notice, you can't see it here, but let me do it right here. When I log in, first of all, when I log in, I see this. You will eventually see this. You don't see this yet. What ends up happening is when you guys log in, it's asking you basically right here the first time when you will log. Actually, no, I think for this when you guys do up. So right now you guys are good. So right now you guys should be seeing this. You are logged in. The session is now active. You may close the window. All right, so I can close this window. We're ready to go. I'm logged in. All right. Now it's asking us to over here run Okteto namespace to switch your context and download Kubernetes credentials. Look, we already did this, but every time we do this, we already did this when we downloaded the config file. But every time we log in again, it's going to ask us to do it. Go ahead, just type in Okteto namespace, and it's just configuring everything, right? It's just updating our config file to make sure they're all aligned and everything's linked up, all right? Now, at this point, right, we're all configured, excellent. We're now going to type Okteto up. This kicks off the server that we're going to be developing in. Okay, this kicks off the server that we're going to be developing in Okteto. So when I do Okteto up, and this is where it's going to converge a little bit for us. For me, you start seeing this activating your development center. You see this? I don't know if you guys can see, but there's like this little animation thing going on. There's things happening, etc., etc. For you guys get this prompt. Okteto manifest YML doesn't exist. Do you want to create it? Yes or no? Yeah, type Y for yes. You want to create it. Okteto is going to go ahead and do its best guess and create this will be another YAML file. Again, these YML files, .yml files, are basically configuration files. That's all they are. They're configuration files. They basically tell the servers on your end, on your machine, and in Okteto how our application is going to run. We'll get more into it later. We want to be uninvolved as much as possible when it comes to configuration files. Remember, our eye on the prize is our actual application. In terms of configuring this and that, I guess, we have to get our hands dirty. We want to be minimal as possible. So this is beautiful in the sense that Okteto actually goes and does this for us. When you click yes, it literally says this command walks you through the process. It does the most common items. For me, oh, that's all I needed, yes, and it just went ahead and created this YML file, right? And you come back here. After the YML file is created, then all this nonsense that's happening with me, right? Where am I? Okteto, when I did Okteto up, right? All this stuff you guys should see now. This. And what you'll see now also, to come here, you'll see this, right? My namespace is probably Gilani 79. You guys have different namespaces depending on what you chose for your username for GitHub, right? And you'll notice now over here, my prompt changed. Remember before my prompt over here, if you can see it, it was web dash Waj Gilani, blah, 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 website, whatever, right? On my local machine. Once we did up, actually, not even when we did login. Actually, I think it was, even the login, it was still the same. It's once we did up. Once we did up, it's literally saying, welcome to your development container, happy coding. You notice the prompt changed. It's now my namespace, my folder, website, and then, app. I'm in, go ahead and type ls, right? It looks kind of the same as my local machine, and for your local machine, it looks the same too, guys. But I am now actually programming in Okteto's servers. I'm there. I'm online. right? It mirrors our machine. What we do in our machine, it does it there, right? So we're basically programming in Okteto now. That's what this is why the prompt changed. The prompt prompt changed basically so you know you're coding there. All right. It is at this point that you guys should see, if you go back to your namespaces, that you should see now website or whatever your folder's name. My folder's name is website. You should see that up here now. All right. You should now see that in your Okteto cloud. All right. You guys see that now in your Okteto cloud. All righty. From here, guys, next thing we want to do, let's get into our virtual environment. Yes, even in Okteto, let's get into our virtual environment. Why? Guys, Python. Virtual environments is a Python thing. All right? Be it on our machine, be it at work, be it on freaking Okteto, it does not matter. It's a Python thing. So we want to get into our virtual environment and we want to use our virtual environment. Our virtual environment got kicked up already when we loaded everything up. All right? So all I'm going to do is source, right, it's already there, just like I did before, web dash bin activate. Now, the question I have for my PC students is, do you still have to do it the PC way, or now do you have to do it the Mac way, because really the Linux way? So for my PCs, just try it your PC way, and then I'll ask you guys actually in class today, or a little class later when we have our class, if it worked when you guys were like finally connected to Okteto, if you had to source the environment, if you did it now the way I do it, like the Macs, or do you still have to do it the PC way? All right, so that would be interesting. Either way, now after I got into my virtual environment, you noticed web dash is there for my virtual environment, my new prompt showing that I'm an Okteto. All right, and I'm in this environment. What do I want to do, guys? I want to install my requirements. Now I want to install my libraries, and the command is really simple. This time we do pip install -r, and then the file requirements.txt, right, which is there, and you want to basically just run that off, and you'll see all this stuff start happening, all this stuff loading in all our libraries and everything in Okteto. You're good to go, right? It's pretty fast. It happens. It's all there installed, and once it's all installed, guess what we're gonna do, guys? We're going to kick off our server. Python main.py. I press enter. Look what happens. Now look, it gives me my local machine here again too. Right? It goes to my local machine. But in addition to that, go here. Right? Go to your Okteto. And here it says website running. Click on this, right? And you should see it saying running at this point. And go here where it says endpoints. See this URL? That's your URL now. This is the URL that's going to be in our applications. Click on this. I clicked on this and look at my URL right here. I have it bigger over here. This is my URL. It's literally the name of my project dash the name of my username and then .cloud.okteto.net. It should be the same for all you guys. That same kind of concept. The name of your project dash the name of your username, then cloud.okteto.net. This, when I click this off, there it is, right? In fact, let me play with it. Open up, watch this. I open up app.py on my local machine, and now I'm going to say message, hello world, welcome to Okteto. Right? I'm going to change this live. I go here, refresh. Look what just happened. Do you see just what happened? I just changed this on my local machine, the code. Okteto has this whole thing connected. So our files now on my machine are connected directly to Okteto. And so when I reran my URL, bam, we're on Okteto. See that? And now we're live. So right now, as I keep running the server like this, we're live. Now the problem is when I kill this server, right, what's going to end up happening here is when I kill this server, right, I killed it. I'm still in Okteto, but when I go here and I refresh, it says your development container is ready. See, it's saying, look, everything's ready. Happy coding. What's going? Go code. What are you doing? Right? What happened is that So Okteto streamlines the fact that we can code directly in the Okteto environment. We'll set up our databases. We'll have this good time. But the problem is when we disconnect our server, our application goes down. It's still running, but it's not deployed. Okay, it's still running, but it's not deployed. There's a difference between us coding live and testing things live and deploying our website. So what we actually want to do is we want to actually now deploy our website, right? So that even when we shut our computer down, we log off our server, right? We can still, you guys can still go to my website and I can still go to your websites, right? And obviously, more importantly, any potential employers, right? Because you're going to put this on your resumes, they can go to your website anytime. So the next step now, guys, we want to actually deploy this website. We want to deploy this website and we want to get our database going. Because now we're ready to, now that we're on Okteto, it's time to get busy with the backend. It's time to get busy on the backend and start loading up our data, writing the Python code to do that, and start playing with some really, really heavy-duty data stuff. And then we'll come back to the front end. We'll do that. We'll do it in steps, in stages. We'll build some data in our backend, add more functionality here, so you guys can see it, how it all connects and the difference between get and post. All right, so basically, guys, at this point, we're good with. If you're good at this point where you got this to run, right? You got this run when the server was running, you're ready to go and we're ready for the next stage. All right, guys. So at this point, I will end the video and I'll see you guys back in class and for the next module 3. All right, have a good day, guys.